My name's John Ryder, and I'm the director here at the Flag Art Foundation. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight for a conversation between artist Robin F. Williams and author and novelist Ottessa Moshfegh, presented on the occasion of Robin's Spotlight presentation, which you can all see just outside on the purple wall over there. Robin's Spotlight presentation is Flag's 31st Spotlight show over the past 3 years. I am continually impressed and humbled how each artist approaches a one-work exhibition, and Robin's piece is no exception. It's wild, psychedelic, cinematic, and a virtuosic painting, and I'm thrilled to live with it through the end of this month. I'm also similarly excited to see how the visual and written arts overlap, and Ottessa's text is magnificent and personal read, and a beautiful complement to the painting just outside. To give everyone a bit of background on each of tonight's participants, I'll just do short bios. Robin F. Williams is an artist living and working in Brooklyn, New York, who earned a BFA from RISD in 2006. Recent solo exhibitions include Night Shift at Pace Prints, Good Morning at PPOW, Undying at Periton in Tokyo, and Robin F. Williams, We've Been Expecting You at the Columbus Museum of Art. Robin's paintings are included in numerous institutional collections worldwide, including the Brooklyn Museum, the Columbus Museum of Art, ICA Miami, and X Museum in Beijing. Ottessa is a fiction writer originally from Boston, but now based in Los Angeles. Eileen, her first novel, was shortlisted for the National Book Critics Circle Award and the Man Booker Prize, and won the PEN Hemingway Award for debut fiction. My Year of Rest and Relaxation, Death in Her Hands, and La Pavona. Her next 3 novels were each New York Times bestsellers. She is the author of the short story collection Homesick for Another World and the novella McLuh. Before I hand things off, a few just housekeeping notes. Tonight's conversation will be about 45 minutes long, followed by a Q&A. And Flag's other exhibitions, Deborah Roberts' Consequence of Being, which you're all sitting in, and the group exhibition S-Curve on the 10th floor will be open afterwards, so take a look around if you have some time. And with that, again, I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and for Robin and Ottessa.
Thank you.
Hi.
Take it away.
Yeah, so Ottessa and I decided we would do sort of a conversational talk. We're going to ask each other some questions, talk about the painting, talk about the essay. I do want to say off the bat that this is a little surreal for me because many of my friends who are in my crit group and book club are here. We've read 2 of your books in our book club. We went to see Eileen as a group together. So this is like a little freaky for us in a great way. So thank you so much for being part of this and writing this piece. It's so great. I cried when I read it.
Yeah, why?
Oh, God. Just the mom stuff.
Oh.
I mean, a lot of it. I'm
Okay.
like thinking about the questions. I'm like, where's the piece where I cried? Yeah.
I just think it's so awesome that one can cry reading something.
Pretty
or
cool. I
watching
agree.
something or looking at something. Like I so rarely cry.
Yeah.
That yeah.
Oh, I cry all the time, but that's not. But that shouldn't, detract from the power of the piece. I don't cry from writing that often, so I just cry privately about my own stuff. Yeah, let's see. It was this piece, yeah. Okay. So I was telling you that I recently went back and listened to La Pavona again, because I felt like a lot of the themes in that were coming into my work. I feel like Eileen and my Year of Rest and Relaxation were really influential in like the last body of work, and then I'm thinking more about La Pavona. But there's a character in that book, Ina, a witch, and you wrote, they distrust Ina for her wisdom while they still made use of it, which got me thinking about Audre Lorde's uses of the erotic, which we also read in our book club. And her quote, "As women, we've come to distrust that power which rises from our deepest and non-rational knowledge. We've been warned against it all our lives by the male world, which values this depth of feeling enough to keep women around in order to exercise it in the service of men, but which fears this same depth too much to examine the possibilities of it within themselves. So women are maintained at a distant, inferior position to be physically milked, much the same way ants maintain colonies of aphids to provide life-giving substance for their masters." And then you wrote in this essay, "I think my generation carries enormous neurotic anxiety because we grew up sensing that the women who raised us were tasked with the impossible, to be strong and self-directed without destabilizing patriarchy." I think that's what made me cry. And then my question is like, so where do you think we are with that? Like, how do you think our generation is doing with that? Like, do you think we're more willing to destabilize patriarchy?
I mean, I kind of think it is destabilizing itself in a way. I mean, it looks pretty unstable. But I don't know. I was sort of talking about this last night when asked, how do you feel about being referred to as a female author? And I was like, well, that's ridiculous. And I feel like actually that happens less and less. Yeah. So in a way, it's, point destabilizing patriarchy. Just in my personal experience as a writer. But, I truly don't know. And that was one of my questions for you. Oh, get ready. When we talked, so today is the first day that Robin and I have actually met in person. But we've talked over email, and we did sort of like a virtual studio visit months ago. And when we did talk over the Zoom, you used this phrase many times, and it seems really central to your work, obviously, and that is that you consider what the collective consciousness is, right? Which relates to your question, how are we doing? But I'm wondering, sort of stepping outside of the patriarchy question, how do you measure the collective consciousness? Like, what are you looking at, and how do you know you're getting it right?
Well, I don't, but that's a great question. I think I trust that my subconscious is like a part of the soup. And so like the more I just really listen to it, the more I think it's probably tapping into something shared. Like the less ego-based the ideas are, or the decisions are, like that feel about like a point I'm trying to make or something, that feels like I'm getting further away from something shared that we're all going through. And if I don't know, like, if I have a really great like shower idea, usually that feels like it came from somewhere else, or it's like the culmination of something that like moved through like the weather that I like caught. Or like if I make myself laugh, if I surprise myself, if I get an idea and then I like chuckle about it, I'm like, that's probably something that like, because yeah, I think I trust that like I don't pretend that I speak for like, the majority or everybody or anything like that, but that I think I'm fishing for like something I can rely on as a shared experience with like a critical mass of people that it will mean something to. And I guess I don't try to measure it like, I recognize it's not gonna get everybody. That's never my goal. but yeah, if it feels like something outside of myself or a surprise to myself or something I'm afraid of, which also we can get into, I talk about fear a lot in this essay. Yeah, definitely if it's something I'm afraid to do. I'm like, oh, there's something there. Yeah.
I mean, you're from Ohio, so I would think that the collective consciousness of like the place where you were born into, that you were raised in, and that maybe like the artist in you emerged from is kind of different from the, obviously, I mean, some time has passed, but it's also like your art isn't in your hometown right now. It's in New York City. Like, how does that change your ideas of, how broad do you have to be when approaching the kind of work that you do, which is really so much about modernity and humanity?
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I had that museum show in my hometown 2 years ago, which was like incredibly surreal. And it was like so symmetrical in a really weird way. And by that, I mean like I had lived in Columbus for 18 years. I'd gone to college, and then I'd lived in New York for 18 years. And I was showing about 18 years worth of work. And it also felt like a little bit like I was going home to like a high school reunion or something, and I was like bringing it, like all my paintings were, I don't know, or I was like, my worlds were colliding. I was like introducing like my New York friends to my Columbus friends or something like that, and then there was also a total solar eclipse, and Columbus was in the path of totality, like while I was there. Like it felt crazy, in a good way. It was like very cosmic. And I guess I do want to speak a little bit to like growing up in the Midwest, because I do think that has probably informed this more like trying to find a central point or collect a shared something, because when you're in the middle of the country and you're landlocked, and like the United States is so vast, we like forget about how huge it is and how far away. When you're in the middle, you're very far from like bodies of water, the coasts, like I think we think that the internet has sort of compensated for like the speed of information or culture, but it has a little bit for sure, but it's less about like information getting to you or difference getting to you. I think it's like a geographical, psychological feeling that like you could turn in any direction and still be surrounded by like a kind of sameness, and like you got to ask yourself, like, am I going to get along with the people in every direction from me, or am I going to fight with them? And I think that's why Midwesterners are so agreeable. But then also why I feel like I've been interested in like finding common denominators or something, or like, and it's changed in the second half of my life, but while I lived there, it was a swing state. And it really was like sort of down, half and half, and it was not as polarized as it is now. So I do think that I have a little bit of a setting toward like, well, what are we all thinking about that maybe and I shouldn't say all, but like as broad as I can go as a person with my biases and limitations and worldview, but like, yeah, like how far can I cast this net to get an idea that we can all like tap into? I don't know.
I'm curious, do you think that visual art can reach more people than literature? Because in a way one could argue, I'm not saying this, but one might say that it is more immediately legible. Like, is the audience for visual art in some ways broader than like readership?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, because then we'd have to sort of define the bounds of like what that is. Like, I do think that like maybe we're living in a more visual world, but I don't know that like anybody's more literate visually. I think we're bombarded with visuals, but I don't know that we're like reading them in the same way. That's also like a project I like. Like I'm interested in like the accessibility of visual communication, and like I have an illustration degree, so I'm also like, this is a language, and like where's the point that's like pushing most people's threshold of their visual literacy without alienating them. But I think there's like in the fine art world, the visual art world, there's such a breadth of, that's not everybody's endeavor, a lot of people are trying to be like at the very far reaches of like what you could consider consuming as a visual object. I like to be in the middle of that, rather than at any far extreme. But, gosh, I don't know. I do worry about like how hard it is to read sometimes. I think that's getting harder. But I also think it's like more important than ever that we like keep that muscle strong. So, and I don't know, there's something about like a saturation point too. Like I think there can be a book that like really just like cuts through. And I don't think that happens as often for like just like an art object. So yeah, we'll have to like settle this outside, I guess.
I'll let you win. It's fine. No, that's interesting. I mean, going back to what you were saying about Ohio, I like hate when I go on a book tour and I have to go to my hometown. It's always the worst visit, like the worst event. The last time actually was when Lat Bono came out, and I love my publisher and my publicist and the people that set up these events for me. They set up a talk with someone, another fiction writer, at like the Brattle Cinema in Harvard Square in Cambridge. I'm from Boston, and it was like this. I used to go see like the coolest movies here in the 90s. Oh my God, this is like so crazy that I'm on stage talking about a book. Like my mom is here and my dad is here and my niece is here. And I like was so immediately anxious and defensive that it kind of ruined the event. And then halfway through, there was like someone talking in the audience, and I like lost my shit. I was like, can you please shut up? Shut up. And it was like, I had just like immediately returned to some like childhood id, where like I'm not given the space to speak or be heard or seen, and like everyone's making this so much harder than it should be. It's a big thing to bring your art back home.
Yeah. Well, my immediate thought about that is that like the cultural differences between Boston and Columbus, Ohio are major. And yeah, they're tough on you out there, especially if you go off and like do something and then come back. I feel like the attitude on the East Coast about like, you think you're an artist is kind of, yeah. I almost tried to do the accent and then I reeled it back in. But no, it was like, I found it was a mix. I think it was net healing. Also because, like Columbus, Ohio has changed a lot since it's a blue county, but like the state has gone really red, and they've rolled back a lot of, you can't get, I think they overturned their abortion access there. Yeah, it's really, and, attitudes about trans folks and gay people has like, you know, never been great, only gotten worse. And so like going back and having, like being a queer adult, like a sort of late in life, like realizing you're queer, going home to your hometown, putting a bunch of like queer paintings, especially the ones that I like made when I was young that I didn't like have a sense of what was going on. I put them up on the wall next to all my new ones, and I was like, oh God, you know, like very revealing, very vulnerable, but. No, it was kind of, and then to get a very warm reception was like, oh gosh, okay, like, and I had left there being like, I can't be myself here, and then coming back and having a big show of myself, and being really welcomed, and it's like my middle school English teacher was there, like my parents brought so many people from their church. They wanted me to like lead they were like, can you lead a tour? I was like, no. No, part of it was really lovely. The parts that felt weird, were like, did feel a little out of body, because I don't identify as much with Columbus as my home anymore, even though it's, you know, will sort of always be, but it doesn't feel like where I actualize myself. So, it did feel a little like I was visiting, or time traveling or something. But okay, so speaking of out of body, I'm like, I have an out of body question, I think.
I do too.
Okay. Who should go first? So I said, I like the way you talked about displacement in the essay, about like language that was omitted, like you described that your mother didn't teach your sister the word for fear. Either the vocabulary about fear or the history of the trauma left behind from, you know, this epigenetic lineage. And it was actually like kind of a body that was missing. So you write, to be a feeling person seems impossibly dangerous. And I was thinking that feelings are so rooted in the body. I read a book called The Transmission of Affect. And I remember a line that said, emotions are feelings that have found language. And so this painting is called Language Model. It's about AI. And I think part of my distrust of AI is that it feels like it's language without a body to be rooted in feeling. I also believe that language is its own consciousness, but that it exists in like an ecosystem with our bodies and minds and voices. So maybe I'm more upset that AI is an ecosystem that like isn't based on love. It seems like it's based on greed or like making some profit out of it. So do you think that language has a mind of its own? And then as a writer, how do you experience it? Is it like a tool or a collaborator? I don't know how much that goes back to our out-of-body conversation, but
matter.
Yeah, that like language could like exist. Can it exist outside of a body?
Yeah. I think language can. Language can exist in every abstraction in the same way as paint. You know, they're ships full of paint, but they don't mean anything yet, you know? And I feel like similar about language, that it's not a tool. I think it's more of a collaborator, I think. But it's also a substrate, you know? It's like the thing by which I can express. Like without it, I'm just blah, you know? You might get it, actually, if I just did that for a few hours. But, you know, maybe more interesting or more provocative or specific if I can speak or write to you in a language that we say we have in common, which we don't really, you know? Yeah. Like, like we say we are all understanding one another. We don't really. It's just we're making an assumption, and that assumption is this beautiful, I think, space where so much gets to exist, and like subjectivity and the imagination and difference of opinion, consciousness. So I don't, okay, so to answer your question, I don't think language has a consciousness of its own personally, but I do think that there's a certain gestation period with a piece of writing, for example, or maybe you could speak to this better about a painting, but in which the baby is now kind of developing on its own. It's got its own parts, it's got its own fate, it knows what it's somewhere, maybe not consciously, but in its deeper intelligence, in its DNA, it knows what it is going to become. And that's the point that I live for as a novelist. Like the moment where I can step back and be like, okay, I can be an idiot now. Like this book is calling the shots. This book knows what it is, it knows what it's doing, and it's way smarter than I could have ever, fabricated an idea of it to be. So I believe in consciousness in that way.
Yeah, it doesn't feel to me that it's like a separate consciousness, but then when it's getting very trippy, but like, is anything, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like it has enough autonomy as a force that I could start to define it as a consciousness, maybe. Because everything that has a consciousness is sort of like a node connected to a bunch of other things, fueling it and regenerating it and composting it and like shuttling it forward or something.
Yeah, I actually don't think that way.
No?
I understand you, but it isn't it's not my personal logic.
And that's
of consciousness.
fair.
I'm like, everyone's a satellite. We're all alone. No one ever really connects with anyone else. But I like your idea.
Well, I think that what you're describing is like the lived experience of more people. Yeah, I think to the extent that like I believe what I'm saying, I would say it's like the less common of the experiences, but I have like chosen to put my faith in that orientation. Even though, it's not how I'm feeling most of the time.
I mean, it's a vision of consciousness rather than the lived experience of it, maybe.
But I think when I do experience that, and it happens a lot making art, and like what you're describing, like when something just kind of like takes off and like you're like in a trance state, or just like a total flow state, and the decisions don't really feel like decisions, they just feel like inevitabilities or whatever, then there's nothing better than that. And and that sort of like gets me through the other times feeling extremely separate, I think.
That connects to something I wanted to ask you about this painting, because when we talked in the fall, you talked about the work that you had been doing as being more multimedia, and that it was really important to the work that it was multimedia and that you were using oil paints and acrylics and other things.
Yeah, just like different techniques inside of those.
Airbrush. But you did say that you were starting to use like glow-in-the-dark paint, which I want to know more about later. But that you were working now mostly in oil. So this is an oil painting.
Although there is technically a little acrylic in there, but it's mostly...
How dare you?
Well,
No,
it's mostly
fine.
oil.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so and what you said about oil painting was so interesting, like just in this context, like the back and forth of like painting versus writing. You were saying that when you were working with multimedia, it sort of required that you did more planning, more studies, more mapping, like really knowing what you were going to do for the final work before you did it. Mm-hmm. And that with oil painting, it was, as you said, more about discovering the work, because you can sort of go backwards and forwards in time with oil. Like you can build up, you can build down, you can go back, you can change it. And where am I going with this? But to point it out. And I mean, I want desperately to relate it to my own writing practice, because it's so fun to nerd out about things like planning versus not planning. But like, what was my question? It was like, right. You talked about oil painting sort of giving you the opportunity to channel more. Do you still feel that way? And I'm sure that it happens many ways, but can you talk more specifically about working in oil?
Sure. And I think that's true, but I think that's true now because I went through that time of really planning and like where there was more of a design amount. Part of the reason I did that, that was actually a step toward being able to be more intuitive. Like I started out only working in oil, and I never knew how to finish. It was like too perfectionistic. Like I was very hard on myself. I couldn't channel anything. And so I had to go into some mediums that like, you know, and it was a gift that it also had a lot to do with the subject matter, and I kind of found the groove where like what I needed and what I wanted to express and how I was expressing it could all like come together. But I needed to have like, okay, I'm doing this part with airbrush, and then I'm doing this part in oil, and I'm masking off these areas, and once I've done this hard edge with these two materials that like can only go one direction, like you can't put acrylic over oil, then like that is done. You know, and I had to like, I planned it a lot, but then I had to trust that when I executed it, like I could get through every threshold and like be like, and that is as good as that part will get. And, you know, and it's conceptually meant to be closed. Like I had to build a mechanism to like stop myself from like destroying the thing. And like doing that for many years, then also I think built some much more trust in myself. And then I could go kind of back to just being like, you know what, I'm not going to plan this so much, and I'm going to just work in this one medium so that I can trust myself not to overdo it or to hate it into ruin. I can do a part in oil and be like, yeah, that's done, you know, or like this, or sit with it while it was horrible and ugly until it was done, and trust that it would be done. And not hate myself while it was ugly. So like that, it's not so much that like oil allows for that. I think like at this stage in my practice, it allows for it now for me. But I also know that like materially, I go through these cycles, and I might cycle out of it and find some other reason to be working differently. But for now, it's the thing that's making the most sense.
This is not a one-to-one comparison by any means, but when I was thinking about this and how I wanted to pose the question, I was like, oh, is this sort of like when I approach a novel with a plan or with no plan? or like, is it about having an intention or a curiosity versus like a question that needs to be answered? And then in other terms, like, is this similar to me planning chapter by chapter a novel, plotting out a story or a novel or screenplay or something, such that I know like exactly, on page 34, this needs to happen, or this needs to have happened, da 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 da. And in cases like that, I find that it's actually this like sort of trick, because I'm not really enjoying doing my homework. What I'm doing that joyfully is it's kind of screwing around while I'm doing my homework. If that makes sense. Yeah. And I like other kinds of confinements. What's the word? Parameters or restrictions or whatever. No, she's shaking her head. Sometimes I say, okay, I'm like not, like my day is not done until I've written this many words. And other times it's like, well, my day isn't done until I've figured this out, or I've reached a resolution about something, or even just like until I feel better about the thing I'm doing, What, like your day-to-day practice, what does that look like?
That's kind of similar, actually. Like, some days there's urgency and like a reason why I need to like chain myself there a little bit more and like get to a stage of something. Although I try to organize my practice so there's like as a little of that as possible. Because I'm not one of these people that works well under like a tight deadline or pressure, or like I don't procrastinate. I much prefer to be able to like, because I'm trying to resist that like ego panic that like clouds the channeling, so I need it to be leisurely to a certain extent, so that like when I was working in this way that was a little more planned, there were easier parameters. Yeah, it was like, okay, I know this pour that I'm doing with acrylic has to happen in a certain block of time because it's gonna like dry away, and I can't quit halfway through. Like I've got to execute this like gesture, and then I would be like, well, and I can't do anything else because that has to dry. So I would, then I either have to work on something else or be like, that's it for the day, or. So sometimes, yeah, that again was a really good parameter for me when I didn't have good breaks or like a better sense of like my own limits or needs. And then as I like trusted those processes, now I can be a little bit more like, I'm tired, like I'm not making good decisions, I'm going home. Or like I'm really in a good state, I don't want to like quit right now because like if I can go a little longer, like, or I mean, I don't know. I don't even know that I have that thought, because mostly when I'm in it and it's like going really well, I like completely lose track of time. And nothing makes me more furious than like when I have to stop, like when I have an appointment, or like, and this is what I was saying. This is why I like miss appointments during the, they're on my calendar. I've set alarms, like they're, like, especially Zooms. Not so bad if I have to physically go somewhere, but if I have a virtual appointment, for some reason, I have a hard time with those. Yeah, there's more flow in my process in this chapter of my life, which is cool.
I feel like we need to talk about AI.
Okay.
Because that's what everyone's talking about. No, just joking. This language model sort of came out of, or I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it sounds like a lot of the work you were doing was about AI really specifically, about Siri, right? Like painting Siri, which is fascinating. And then this is sort of Venus as an AI goddess or Sports Illustrated cover girl or something. And I mean, there's so many places you could go in a conversation about artificial intelligence, but I wonder how do you square, so you're an artist, you're talking about being in a flow that's like about accessing something in the outer reaches of our mind and body, right? Like we don't actually know where we're getting this shit, but it's coming through and we know when it's coming through and we know to like strike while the iron is hot, you know? And then artificial intelligence is this like cheat or, crib notes taker for a way to feed an idea into a contutor, as I like to call them, and see what like some other kind of intelligence might spit out. Are you ever tempted to use AI in your work?
Not really. I did my only attempt at like really integrating it was when the imaging models were really early, and so they were so bad, like, but in the best way. So like we weren't even to Uncanny Valley yet. We were just in like just the Wild West of uncanny, and I did ask it to render some images of Siri like as a human on the beach, because this was my project, was like how do you represent Siri? She has no body, like how would I paint her? And so I did want to ask an AI to do it. I thought that was interesting, and it came back with some like very haunting, confusing images that I thought about like just painting, you know, that I was like, oh, I'll just paint these, and I just kept not doing it, like it just wasn't the stuff. I don't know. I really thought I was going to. I was excited about it, and I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. And then it just never happened. And no, I'm not that tempted, because I think the other thing about it is it's it can be an interesting subset of information, but it's designed, like they're telling us that it's not designed, that it has a mind of its own, that it's a black box. We don't really know how it works, which I think is true in a way, but it's also being designed by tech bros. It is being designed, and it's being hemmed in, and it's being told it can't do certain things, and it can do other things, and maybe it'll bust out at some point, I don't know, but right now it's a designed mechanism, and it's designed for whatever financial means they have in mind, and it's also designed for, like, it's a prediction model for the middle. It's like a median tool. It's like, what is the most likely thing this person wants and is asking for? So it's like the ultimate people pleaser or something. And it is. It's like so sycophantic, and it's very like, oh, great suggestion. You know, like it's not like, it's not going to challenge me. It's not going to like, or, you know, I shouldn't say that. I don't know. Everybody has their different experience with it. I haven't found it to like, I think what artists do is they, like, even what I'm doing with this sort of median project, or like trying to find like a broad enough net to bring people in, I'm also trying to find like an edge to that, you know? Like, I'm trying to find like the edges of the Venn diagram or something. Like, it's still not like a median project. I'm finding people's comfort thresholds and then being like, oh, you like this? It's pretty. It reminds you of this thing you know. What if it was like this? You know, like I'm still trying to like find some perimeter of a medium place, and the AI is really committed to like a tech guy's understanding of what the most profitable medium place will be, which is like just a very different endeavor.
Definitely. I relate to that very much about trying to find the perimeter of your Venn diagram. I feel like people sometimes ask me like why every book I write is so different, and I'm like, is it? But I guess it is. I mean, it's like my first book, Eileen, was a sort of pseudo-noir, New England noir, and then My Year of Rest and Relaxation was like this millennial novel about whatever. And then, my last book was about an adolescent boy in the late Middle Ages in a fictional, like, Eastern European village. And to me, I'm like, yeah, it's all the same. But it's also me playing with the idea of what is a book, I'm like, oh, a book is this, and like right now, I'm the book that I'm working on right now is sort of like it's sort of like a early 20th century British novel. I'm writing it in an English accent.
Are you going to read it?
No. Right now?
No. I mean like the audio book.
Yes, I'm going to read it. Yes, this is Ottessa Moshfegh. Oh my God, that would be so funny.
Well, I was just listening to.
Oh yeah, because I did the audio.
Yeah.
That was so self-indulgent. You guys, like when you do your own audiobook, you're like, and then this happened. Oh, it was so fun. What was I saying? But yeah, like playing with this idea of what is a novel is like, and depending on a tradition of some iteration of a novel that other people will immediately identify, so that I can use those assumptions and that comfortability or familiarity, like you said, like in order to push them somewhere maybe they hadn't expected to go. So you can't ask AI to do that. I mean, yet.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know what the future holds, but I know that Disney offloaded their AI. They put like $1 billion into it or something, and they're like shutting it down. I think it's going to be great for war and porn, probably, is my guess about it. And I think, oh God, I mean, I'm sure it'll change the workforce, but I don't know. I am less fatalistic about that side of things, and maybe I'm going to be proved totally wrong, but I'm not worried about it coming for art. Never been. I'm just not. I don't think that's AI's project. It's just not.
It's not profitable.
Yeah, it's also not profitable, totally. That's probably the bottom line.
Okay, how are we doing on time?
Oh, yeah, I've not been keeping track at all.
We got let's say 10 minutes left of the conversation before
Okay.
we open it up.
Okay.
Cool.
I mean, what have we not touched on yet?
I mean, I want to get like maybe. Oh, okay. So we're talking about. Yeah, let's talk about the artwork that you mentioned in the essay. Yeah, so I like how you described the Degas sculpture and the Gauguin painting in the essay as terrifying and fascinating at the same time. I had this feeling as a kid about that Vermeer painting Girl with the Red Hat. I didn't see it in person, but I just like saw it in a book, and it was like chilling. I don't know. I think it was because I couldn't tell that she was a girl. She looked like a sexy boy with no eyebrows, and I had just never seen somebody like that. I just never seen an image of somebody like that, and I was like fascinated by it and just like almost nauseated. I was just like, what does this mean about me and like people? And I was just, but yeah, so, you said in the essay, I write fiction, I think, to get at something secret and deranged that I'm not allowed to talk about. I think fear is a good teacher in art, maybe shows us what we think we aren't allowed to feel. Do you remember what you weren't allowed to feel when you saw those works in the museum? If you want to talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe easier to talk about the Degas sculpture, which is one, it's like the little dancer or whatever. It's like this ballerina who he painted and sculpted a lot. And I actually had never looked up anything about this young woman, but she had a difficult life, as it turns out. That resonated because so I grew up in Boston, and I grew up like pretty regularly going to the Museum of Fine Arts there, and they have this one Degas of I think it's called the Young Dancer, and it's this sort of petite bronze, it's like a whole female body worth of ballerina, but sort of just yay high. And it was presented on a pedestal under plexiglass. And it's beautiful, beautiful. And it had the dancer is posing in a very sort of like, I'm fed up and I'm also amazing kind of way, like her nose in the air, perfect posture, and her hands weirdly behind her back. And that was terrifying to me. It was like she was not only trapped under this plexiglass case, which was just disturbing in general to see a girl in a cube like that or whatever. But that also that it was like her determination and pride were kind of pinned around her being restricted and forced into this really uncomfortable posture. And I think it terrified me because I was like, oh, well, is that the only way to find strength? Like, is through being tortured? That was a big deal for me. And the Gauguin painting, one of the last paintings that he did, well, I think it was like the last painting that he made before, or at least before one of his suicide attempts. I don't know which one, but he was miserable, and no one was buying his paintings. And you could tell he was like really having an existential meltdown. And he makes this incredible painting. It's like a tableau of like human history, basically. And writes the name of the painting in the corner in French, and it translates to something like, who are we? Where are we going? Where have we been? Right? Yeah, something like that. And those a painting could ask questions like that could just like take me out of time and put me in a context of just enormity, and with no answers. It was devastating, and I loved it. And I don't know, I can't really remember in the essay why those came up, but yeah, they're for me in being somebody who loves art and books and film and music and all that, the experience of terror and the experience of ecstasy are very closely linked,
And I feel like that's coming up in particular in this moment too. Like all of my inspo art on my studio wall right now, there's a lot of like gothic, romantic, like a lot of the sublime and like, or like, yeah, overwhelming, quasi-spiritual, existential paintings. I think that's a moment right now for sure. And like also I was looking at a lot of futurism too, like this kind of like mania, techno optimism that's like almost spiritual and sublime and terrifying. Like and I think that's like the duality that we're in with the existential crisis of artificial intelligence. Like it's this like master-slave dialectic. Like will it be our God, a benevolent God that like helps us and takes care of us, or will it be this like willing servant that we subdue, or will it be this like monster that revolts and like and we're like trying to figure out where we are in this like cycle of abuse or something, and just like hoping we come out on top. Yeah, it does feel like a very like, and it's such a polarized moment also politically, but like our hopes and fears are just kind of like swinging wildly across that. I'm trying to think if there's one last thing I want to talk about with the essay. Are we like, should we?
If there's one last thing, let's do it.
You know, I don't have it at the top of my head, so maybe on that note, we answer questions.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Rob. Hi, thank you both for giving us such a insightful look into your practices. I wanted to first comment on the pairing. It's so nice to know that both of you have dedicated so much time to the complexity of inner worlds of your subjects, but also the universality of like a collected mental state of these characters. Like across different series, I would say, Robin, like the series or the Last Girl series, and then Ottessa, like the protagonist and Eileen, her interior world, and then My Year of Rest and Relaxation is like another complete universe of someone's complex living, and La Vona itself just hopping between inner worlds of different people. I wonder how, I guess, Ottessa, this question could be for you, how did you come into that part of Robin's work?
Intuitively, I guess, naturally. It's sort of the only way I know how to understand anything if I'm not full of shit, through my own lens, which is inherently, do I need this still? Okay, sorry, through my own lens, which is inherently, me-shaped and therefore, speaking, I first need to translate things into my own language, and it was really fun and cool and exciting to understand Robin's work and also to hear her talk about it, that's like so special to hear someone be like, okay, I never do this. I'm never like, here's what I've been up to the last 6 years, and this, generally speaking, what my interests are and who I am as a human, and where I want to go, and what I'm obsessed with. I never, and it was like so generous and cool and just fascinating to find points of familiarity, and also I'm like, oh my God, I never think about these things, or I can't. How did you come to this, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Mm.
I haven't gotten to read the text yet, but I'm excited to read it. Was there a particular work that you were first struck by? Were introduced to that?
Well, to be clear, I called up Ottessa and I said, will you write about my painting? So that's how this went down. Partially because we were all huge fans, and I was like wish fulfillment for me. But I don't want to speak for you or whatever. But I'm assuming your introduction to my work was through that ask, and then the work we kind of provided to you so that you could familiarize yourself with this whole process. But
yeah, so I mean that's how I got to know Robin and her work. But honestly, it was really this painting that I think I saw an early iteration of, maybe.
Yeah, like the study.
The study of, yeah. And we mostly talked about her, and that's really what I meditated on when I was tasked with writing something.
And I'm so glad, she is, I think, the obvious pick for this because she's about language. Spotlight's gonna pair you with a writer. Yeah. So it's as much as she's about AI, she's about language, and so it felt right for that to be the piece.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Sorry. Hi. Thank you for this conversation. It's been super fun to listen to. One of the comparisons that I've heard with this kind of technological breakthrough of AI is the way that photography kind of shattered the pervading norms of what painting was doing, and it kind of made us lean in and lock in on the unique qualities of what it is to be a painting. I'm just wondering if, I know we're so early kind of in this mode, how AI is going to impact the arts, but are you picking up on a kind of sea change around what the reaction is? Because some people will obviously use it, some people will throw it away, but what do you see is on the other side?
In art specifically?
I mean, ironically, it's unlike photography because it works in language as well as visual.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like a paradigm shift. I'm just kind of curious at what's coming up for you.
I think we were talking about my social media addiction before this. I've become a student of TikTok. And I've observed its ways, and its algorithm, I don't know if we're calling it AI exactly, but I do think that algorithms for social media are a cousin of artificial intelligence, if we're not calling them that. But it's so cool to me to watch people outsmart the community guidelines. I think we're going to be in a Dadaist moment, and big surges of poetry and performance and IRL stuff and physical objects and confusing stuff. I think these algorithms and models are about finding the most normal, profitable, expected, dependable product. And so I think the more, and then it's scraping everything that we make. So the weirder the stuff is that we make, the harder I think it'll be to find the middle of it. And yeah, I know I love meme culture. I love the culture that pops up in algorithms. It's extremely cringy, but if you're not allowed to use a word on TikTok, it's overnight there's a new word for it. and everybody knows what it means, or they just look at you. Like, like there's so many ways to communicate and so many ways to make a new language. Like, social media is probably destroying society, but then I like the ways that I love it. Like, I just watch people be so funny and smart and creative and stupid and brilliant. Like, it's really cool to watch people just bob and weave out around a computer. It's so fun.
Kind of a follow-up of that question is I've been really appreciative of what you've been posting on social media lately. Just like really like going behind the scenes of your process. Like when I was a student, I was always like, how did they make that? How did they make that? And you were just kind of like laying it out. And I feel like, what's like the motivation behind that? Is it like trying to reach an audience, or because I never see artists of like the same level of your career sharing so much. They really want to be art things.
Yeah, well, I think because for a while I was, especially when I was working more in that mixed media mode and the more planned out mode, I was getting it from social media. Like, I was following people who are not like in the quote unquote art world, or like, you know, or the algorithm would be like, you're an artist, here's some art. And they would like send me up a process video of how someone was doing something. And I was like, ooh, that's about like, I've also always been interested in like fan culture and like hobbyist culture, and like there's so much creative impulse, there's so much art making, and like a very narrow amount of it kind of like makes it into the marketplace at this level. And I was like, you know, so I was like, oh, I'll take that. And then I was like, ooh, like this feels bad. Like to just like plop it into the New York art world without any, and then gatekeep it, like it felt insane. So that was the initial impulse. And because I'm a social media addict, and I was like, oh, it'd be fun to make a video. And yeah, and I do believe in this project of like a certain amount of accessibility. Like, I also don't think that if in the same way that like that person that made that video shared that technique with me, like, I don't think if I share my technique with somebody else, like, that it is going to threaten it, or like anybody can take it away from me, or, you know, I don't, like, in the sense that I do believe in this kind of shared consciousness. Like, it's not, I don't know, I just don't like think that I can protect it from anybody that way.
I guess, do you feel like, have you gotten any backlash from like the art world for posting this?
No, pretty much everybody's been really nice about it. Everybody comes up to me like, oh, I like your video. And then, but I have this sort of like, I feel like I have an online persona that I like almost forget about. And then when people in the real world do mention it to me, I'm like sort of immediately embarrassed. But everybody's really, really nice about it. Yeah.
All right, we do have to wrap the talk, but stick around. All right.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's it.